Hello, welcome back to the Arcade Wood Shop. I'm Tony, and Gable's around here somewhere. There he is. Today we're going to build an ice cold beer cabinet, ain't we, Gable? Gable really likes building ice cold beer cabinets. Not really. But so we're going to get started. First step today, we're going to talk about the sides. We're going to cut the shape of the sides for the cabinet with a router. Now, what we're going to use is the 3/4 melamine, or melamine, and this already has the factory wood grain finish on it. It's very close to the original. And since I've made so many of them, I already have a template made. So I'm going to tell you how to take your original side of your cabinet and cut out new sides. And then the next step, we'll do all the cuts on the next video for the inside parts. But stick around, we'll get started. Okay, Gable? Don't cry. Okay, this is the melamine. Now, this comes in 5 by 10 sheets, 5 foot by 10 foot, and we've already cut it to size, but you will notice that the melamine has a tendency to chip along the edges. Now, to cut this stuff, you need what is called a thin kerf bit. That is the factory edge right there. I didn't cut that. This is how the blade will cut with a thin kerf bit. You don't have the chipping. Now, since chipping on the edges of this is a serious problem, and this stuff will scratch, we want to protect the material so it doesn't get damaged any more than it is. So over here on our sawhorses, I put down another piece with some foam noodles on each end. And those noodles are to protect the sides, to keep it from getting damaged. So we're going to take the blank piece, lay it down on the workbench, and we'll get started. Okay, before we get started, let's talk about the tools we're going to use. I'm going to use a bunch of clamps, and these clamps come from Harbor Freight. They're not expensive. They're only about $3 a piece, and you're going to have them. Router bits, I've got tons of them, but there's a couple of ways to do it, but they both involve the router. So we're going to use the less expensive Skil router, variable speed, with a plunge base, and we're going to use what is called a template bit, which has the bearing on the bottom edge of the straight bit. Okay, you could use a collet set, which sits inside of here, and the bit needs the right bit to fit that. But those that just rides around the edge, and you don't have to worry about the bearing going out. And it makes it about a 1/16 of an inch wider on the cabinet, which really doesn't make any difference. Nobody will never notice it, but it could throw you off a little bit. So I recommend using the template bit for the router. So the material we're using is the melamine, and as you can see, it is particle board. And I've taken and flushed up the good edge that I cut on the table saw up with the back edge of the cabinet. Now, if you'll notice, the bottom edge of my blank is really, really dinged up and chipped, and we don't like that. We don't want that. So we're going to bring that down and cut that edge off. Okay, now that we've got the back edge flush all the way down, and that's very important, we've offset about 3/4 of an inch for the bottom, and all I did was take a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, put it on the edge, flush it up so I can get a good square edge down there, and now we're ready to cut. So okay, now that we got everything lined up, I've got my clamps out. We're going to take our clamps, clamp them to the table to hold everything good in place. And I recommend using as many clamps as you've got, because you don't want the wood to move. because this back edge is not going to be cut. And you can't go too far up because you've got to cut this corner. So you've got to leave a little bit off. So I'm going to move the clamp down a little bit so the router has some clearance. And when you're done, it should look about like this. The workpiece should be down first, your template on top of it, and your clamps clamping it together. So now let's get the router and get started. Okay, now this is the router. And since you won't be able to see what I'm doing up close, I'm going to probably start it without you actually seeing how I'm doing it. But I'm going to explain it right here. This is the roller bearing on the bit. And this is what rides along the edge of your template. We use this black melamine as the template. So you want to set your bit up to where the roller bearing is on the edge of the material, keeping your router flat to where you can run it down the edge and follow your pattern. Now, it's very, very important that you keep the roller against the edge of your template. Okay? If you variate, then it's going to run out and you don't want that. Always use your router in a counterclockwise motion. I know when I do the videos, it'll look like I'm going clockwise, but for some reason the videos are flipped, and I don't know why. But just keep an eye on that. Remember to go counterclockwise, and it'll cut a lot better and it won't kick back on you. And later on in the video, you'll actually see me how I use the router to cut out the templates. So let's go. Okay, from you can see right here, I stayed away from the template a little bit. I didn't let the bearing ride on the edge, and I've left a little bit here on our finished piece so I can take some of the waste out without actually cutting up to it. Now I'll go back and I'll run the roller up against the top edge of our template and make that a really clean cut. Okay, for the next step, we'll have to go back and route this again and cut the screw down deeper because we still like about a 3/8 of an inch cutting all the way through. But since the bit is an inch long and I don't want to cut into the bottom of it, I'll put some spacer blocks under the wood to raise it up a little bit. Then it keeps it from cutting into my work table. So that'll give you an idea of what we're going to do. We're just going to go back to the router in the same process and recut it just like so. Now that's how you cut the sides out with a router. Before I stand it up and show you what it looks like, I need to make another piece for the edges. And what I use to protect the edges is called noodles. And I don't know if you're familiar with noodles, but you can pick these things up at pretty much Walmart, anywhere. And all they are is little pieces of foam that people play with in their pools. So we're going to cut a slit in a 2-foot piece on the table saw. Now, okay guys, now that's how you copy a side for a cabinet. Now, in the next video, we'll show you how to cut all the grooves in here for the inserts and the back door and the base. But now all I got to do is go back and sand the edges. Kind of put a small chamfer on the edge to keep this from chipping. And once the T-molding goes on, you'll never know it. But now when you make the next panel, you don't use the same template you used this time. You want to use the piece that you just made, because you want those pieces to be identical. You don't want to have any difference in them. So you'll use this as a template for your other side. So guys, I hope that helps you learn how to make the sides for the cabinet using a router. And like I said in the next video, we'll cut all the grooves for the shelves and the bottoms and the back doors and the front. And then we'll cut all the interior pieces in the next video. Hope you... Okay guys, I know that was a pretty simple video. Gable knows it too. Gable said we've done it 100 times, Daddy. Okay, but that's the way to do it. And that process can be used to copy any cabinet side you need to replace. No need to go out and try to repair something if it's really bad. Just make a new side. It's pretty simple. If you have any questions, hit me up. Be glad to answer any questions. Hope you enjoyed the video and hope you learned something. Next step will be cutting all the inner grooves and doing the T-molding slots. So check us out on the next video. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. So I'm saying bye-bye. You got dirty in here.